Center. That's University of Washington. I'm actually at work right now.
Nice, nice, good job. And then Rhonda, we just talked to Rhonda. She's in Oklahoma, and Sandy, you're over there up in the northwest of the
Uh,
corner.
Port Angeles, right at the northwesternmost tip of the USA, the lower
Awesome,
48.
awesome, awesome, awesome. So I am so glad you're here. And for those of you who are watching us on all of the various social media streams, I'm just really glad you're watching as well. The folks in the VIP room, they did nothing other than sign up to be a VIP. So, you know, that was free. And but they get to be in the room with us here as we're talking. So if you want to be a VIP, I've posted the links everywhere, and April will go ahead and post it in the chat. Well, you can't see the chat, but we'll post it everywhere. So if you want to be a VIP next month, you sure can. Now, hi, everybody. I'm Mary Jad Wisiak, and I'm the owner of Holding the Hope. And I'm here today because I'm so excited to bring you 4 sessions of what I have learned over the past 35 years as an advocate. I keep trying to think, has it been 20 years? No, it's been 30 years. Has it been 30 years? Has it really been more like 35 years? I just keep wanting to push it back because it's a lot. But I'm really super excited to be here. And mostly because it's like pressure free. It's just like, here's what I know. I feel like I know so much. And actually what I've entitled the whole series is Here's What I Know. Because I just feel like I've been through a lot and I've experienced a lot and I know a lot. And I just feel like I really want to pass on that information. That's my sole purpose for doing this series, is because I just want people to be able to I just want to be able to give back what I have, just for free and for fun. And it really is fun for me to do this. I know you think, what, are you silly? No, but yes, but no, this is really fun for me. So I put together a quick little, what do you call it? Oh, PowerPoint. And so I'm going to see if I can find it. And there it is. Nope, that's not it. Here's what I know. Number 1, there it is. So let's just do this. I just want to get started, and I'm going to kind of do this in a way that makes sense for me, because just because I just like to talk. And so if you have a question, go ahead and raise your hand. I want to also acknowledge that April's here, and April is my right hand. I mean, I don't think I could survive without April. So she's here, and she's taking care of all the tech, and she's taking care of everything. And it says here that my internet connection is unstable. Of course it is. And so she's going to take care of all of everything. If you've got something, pop it in the chat. April will see it. If you want to raise your hand, April will see it. If you, all of that. And so that's what's happening here. I don't know if the folks on the various social medias can comment. I have no idea. But if you can, April will see it. So that's why here we are, right? I started this thing, and I've called it Here's What I Know, because that's exactly what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about what I know, and hopefully you'll find it helpful for what you know. Now, there's just a few things I want to show you, because I want to tell you what the course of the past 19 years, I've had this company called Holding the Hope. And so if you want to know more about what I do and the different things I do, these are the links that are going to tell you. Of course, there's my website it's just a general website, talks about stuff. And then the Peer Support Training Center is a place where you can go and find a whole bunch of things for peer supporters. On-demand training, we can find a CARES toolkit, you can find calendar of events if we're going to have some live trainings, which I'm kind of weaning out of because I think everybody is sick of being in a Zoom room. And then the CARES toolkit, which is a 12 module. It was basically, we held a conference online. This was before COVID. And we did this conference, and we were able to record all the workshops, and we put it together in a toolkit with lots of extras. And so we call it the CARES toolkit, Essential Skills for Peer Supporters. Basically, we created it at the time for rural people who couldn't make it to a live workshop. And so it has turned out to be very helpful for a lot of folks. And then my leadership training for people who work in leadership in behavioral health is called the recoveryalignment.com. It's a learning collaborative. It's 12 weeks long. It's fantastic. And the next one starts in January. So if you want to know more about recovery alignment, that's there as well. So that's who I am. That's just a little bit about me. I've been, everything I do here at Holding the Hope is all about recovery. I believe in recovery. I live recovery. All the work I do is I infuse my story into a lot of the workshops I do, and we just have a really good time. Now, I want to talk a little bit about hope, because that's me, right? That's hope. And I have to say, I went on a yoga retreat once, and we had to give ourselves a name, and I wound up giving myself the name of a lotus blossom. And so here it is, a lotus blossom. And the reason is because while this lotus blossom is sitting on this pond with the rippling water, the roots of the lotus blossom go deep, like super deep, all the way to the bottom, and the muckier and nastier and rotted the bottom is, the more the lotus blossom flourishes. So it comes out of goo, it comes out of decay, and it becomes this gorgeous thing that floats on top. So I really love the symbolism of the lotus blossom as a symbol for hope. And that may be, you know, a little trite, but I really love that whole concept of the lotus blossom. And the way that I describe hope is that it's very simple. It's the reasonable expectation that things can get better. Can things get better? Always. I just really believe that things can get better. And so what we know is kind of, that's what we're here. Now, hope, I think, is the starting place for any kind of advocacy. Any kind of advocacy that you got going on, you have to start with that expectation that things can get better. Because if they can't, then you're not going to put in your time and your energy and your effort to just throw yourself against a brick wall, hoping that maybe there's somebody on the other side. That's not very hopeful. What we want is to be able to bring hope into the work that we do, because then that's going to give us it's going to give us access to a whole bunch of hope. Doesn't make sense, but that's kind of what I'm feeling. If we have the expectation that things can get better, we're going to be motivated to keep going, even if we run into some brick walls. We're going to know that there's a door in there somewhere, or we can hear the people on the other side, or we can find a window. You know, battering rams work sometimes, but not always. And then the wall just gets rebuilt, only stronger. So I'm not an advocate of battering rams, but I do think that we just have to really believe that things can get better, or we're not going to move forward. And that's really been the focus of my life. That's been the focus of my work. That's been the focus of so many things. And so I hope that you are able to infuse that hope into the work that you do as well. Now, I want to talk about this series. It's going to be 4 sessions long. This is my first session that we're doing. And we've blocked out 90 minutes, and that may or may not be the case each month. But I do know that that's what we blocked out. Depending on how many people are going to be in the chat room, our conversations over the next few months could get a little bit more expensive, because I want to use this opportunity to really get down and dirty with you guys, one-on-one, really looking at what exactly are you doing and how can I help you. So if you're in the VIP room, you're going to have access to me and the other people that are in there. And of course, the VIP room is free. So it's just a matter for me of having people in the room that I can talk to, because I like that interaction. I think it makes a better training. And so these are some things that you can expect. The first, it's going to be a 3-part series. It's a 4-part series, but this first part is just going to be me talking about some generalities. And then after that, we're going to get real specific. We're going to work on a project that you might have. We're going to actually, we're going to have a little bit of training. We're going to have some guest speakers, and then we're going to have some opportunities for you to really bring forward your project and say, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I've done. What do I do next? And so we're going to give you a roadmap on how to do this. So the first part, which is going to be next month, December, I'll be in Ohio with my favorite brother, Joe. Don't tell my other brother, but he already knows. My brother, Joe, is developmentally delayed. And so everybody knows he's my favorite, and nobody says anything about it. And they just go, oh yeah, we know he's your favorite. So I'll be coming to you live from Ohio, and that's okay, right? Because April's here and she's going to take care of everything, and I will have the information with me. So there we go. So what we're going to expect is that the first one is where we're going to talk about a commitment. And when I say a commitment, I mean exactly that. If you're going to take on an advocacy project, it's a commitment. And so you might think, no, it's not really a commitment. It's just me telling people what I think. Okay, but then you're committing to, hopefully you're committing to something. The reason I want to spend an entire session on commitment is because I want you to understand that and there are people who do what I call hit and run advocacy, and that is not helpful. So if you've got somebody who comes on, they show up and they cause a big stink, and they just cause a big stink, however that is. They come in and they say, this is not right. And then they might be right, and they might be really good, and they might get really loud and really visible and cause a lot of, whoa, she's really upset. And then they go away, and they don't want to be involved in these resolution. So somebody, I've been on those types of advocacy efforts, and I've learned it's not my style. My style, there are people who do that. Fantastic. My style is identifying a problem. Why is it a problem? And then how do we work together to resolve this problem? Let me hear your side of this problem. So yes, you agree that it's a problem, and you're telling me that you can't resolve this problem because of X, Y, and Z. Well, let me help you resolve those issues. Other people might go, that's not my problem. You need to resolve those issues because this particular outcome is completely inappropriate. Yes, and to me, that feels lazy. That feels just angry. It feels more like a reaction than a commitment. So this is when I'm talking about a commitment, I'm talking about you're committed to the resolution of the problem wherever that takes you. So identifying the problem is just one part of the commitment, but then really and then takes us to the next phase, which is understanding. And so there's a lot to understand about a problem. We have to understand, first of all, is it a problem? It might not be a problem to anybody but you. And so if that's the case, then you have some communication and marketing you have to do to be able to help people understand it's a problem. But to go back to the commitment, you have to be able to understand that, first of all, it's not the chance that your issue is going to be resolved is slim, very slim. So you have to come into it with that commitment that I'm here to fix this, even though I know there's not a very good chance that I'm going to be able to do that. That maybe I might get part of what I want. I might get none of what I want, but I'm going to learn a lot. I'm going to come back at this another way, another direction. So when I say commitment, I mean you're committed. You're not there for the glory. You're not there for the adrenaline rush of causing trouble. You're really there because there's an issue that you've identified that is an injustice or is just really wrong. For whatever reason that you've decided this is not right, this isn't going to work right, then you go from there, and you make that commitment, and there are folks that have worked on stuff for 10 years. There are folks who have worked on stuff and advocated for an issue for many, many years, and they realize that sometimes it's going to take people dying and moving away or getting a different job or something, because there's an individual that's in the way, or there's a generation that's in the way of you really bringing forward your issue. And I don't say that with callous. I say that realistically. So this, people that are in power have a certain mindset. They're not going anywhere. So we just need to really help them change that mindset, or wait until they retire and then kind of get things in place to move forward. Long-term advocacy. Where, so the next piece then is to really understand, understanding what? Understanding the issue, understanding what creates this issue and what is the context of this issue. So I use the analogy of, you can go to the DMV and pay your property taxes. Right? It's not going to work. They'll take your money maybe, and they'll, they will maybe renew your license, but it's not going to help your property taxes. You're paying taxes, but the wrong kind. So you need to really understand, what is the system that I'm within? What is the subset of the system that I'm in? And where and how, and who are the people, and how is this going to work, and what is their background? I mean, there's so much to know. When you really want to change something, you really need to spend a lot of time in the understanding phase of figuring out, where does this sit in alignment with everything else that's going on, and then what are the changes that are coming. See, oftentimes changes come and we don't really realize the impact of them because we don't understand the way things are now. And so it's just really important to have an understanding of the system that you're working within. And you are going to be working within that system if you're going to be advocating for change. So it's really important to understand how that system works, who are the players, what's their responsibility, who's their boss, all that kind of stuff. And we're going to go into in depth on that. And then the implementation is another piece that we're going to talk about. And I learned this from the women's movement back in the 70s. Not everybody is going to be good at everything. That's why it's so important that you have a team. It's because one person might be really good at public speaking, and another person is really good at strategy, and another person is really good at organizing. And so not everybody is good at everything, but you can have brilliant people on your team who nobody even knows that they're around, but they're on your team and they make you look good if you're the spokesperson. So when it comes to implementation, it's a strategy, and you need to have like a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, a plan D. You really have to have all of it. And so we're going to spend the last thing talking about implementation. And what I have done is I've infused my approach, my understanding of recovery, my definition of recovery, because everything I do has to do with recovery, because otherwise, why do it? So it has to do with, so for me, I was at a retreat at one point, and the retreat master defined recovery as, if you can work, if you can love, if you can play, you're well. And that was just so stunning to me, because I just thought recovery was some big pie in the sky achievement of perfection, because perfection had always been laid out to me as the acceptable standard. The only acceptable standard was perfection. Well, that went, right? So for me, recovery was supposed to be perfection, but it wasn't. It was just, can you get up in the morning and go to work? Can you have a good time with your friends? Do you have people in your life that you love and you can make sacrifices for, and do all the things that love requires of us? So I'm like, wow, that really impacted my personal recovery. And then how do I make that operational for the work I do? And I just kind of played with it a little bit. And what I realized is that it has to do with purpose, relationships, and joy. And so I really looked at that and I thought, well, this fits in really well with these 3-part series, because if we're doing a commitment, we have to know why. We have to know who we are. We have to understand what is our purpose, and we have to make a commitment to something based on that, not based on what other people think or what somebody else wants us to do, but really, does this align with my purpose? And then the second piece has to do with relationships, relationships at work, right? That's where this came at. But I also want to say, when you're understanding something, you really have to understand the people that are within that. And you have to be able to build relationships within the system that you're understanding. And then the third part is joy. If you're not having fun when you're doing this, you're doing it wrong. I know it's frustrating. It's sometimes we cry and we get upset, but other times it's, in the long term, this is a joyful process because we're making a difference in our lives and other people's lives, in a system, in the way it goes. So I really feel like, as an implementation, we're not like, girding our loins and putting on our armor. We're coming in with some joy, and that's going to disarm other people, but also it's really going to help us to stay grounded, because remember, this is a long-term commitment, and that joy is going to, if we come in with a joyful mind, it's going to remind us of our purpose, and it's going to remind us and help us to stay true to our commitment, and it's really going to inform our understanding. So for me, everything infuses together, everything connects, and everything is just really intertwined. And I can't really I'm going to the best I can, kind of pull some things apart and be able to talk to you about different things. But I just want to be able to explain to you that's what's going to happen over the next 4 months, 3 months, once a month. We're going to talk about this. So with that, I want to talk a little bit about the best way for you to really get the best out of this series. And I will tell you that the best way to get the best out of this series is to join the VIP room. Because if you're in the VIP room, I'm going to be tailoring this particular, whatever I'm talking about that day, to you, to your questions, to your comments, to your homework, because you're going to get homework assignments and you're going to turn them in ahead of time. And I want to be able to see that so that I can talk to you. So if you're part of the VIP room, you're going to get access to that, and some one-on-one coaching that you'll hear. Now, it's free, right? It's just free. And I called it the VIP room because that's really what it is. And I really want you to, that's going to give us, that's going to give me some bones to build this around. If I'm just talking theory the whole time, it doesn't make sense. I really want to have some practical application. And I'll be bringing my examples of different things that I'm working on as well. So that's the first thing that I would really encourage you to do, is to join the VIP room. And this light's been flashing at me. I don't know if you can tell the difference, but I'm going to just turn it off because it's about to die anyway. So let's just get rid of that. The second thing I really want you to do is to pick a project, and because then you can work with us, and you can take the things that I'm going to talk about, and you can adhere them and apply them to a specific project that you're doing, and you can bring it to the VIP room, and you can tell us what you're doing, and you can get some feedback from your colleagues, you can get some feedback from me. If you run into trouble, or if you're just wondering what next steps to do. Or if you just don't even want anybody around you, you just want to do this on your own and kind of, maybe stick your toe in the water, pick a project, a little tiny project, something that you need to speak up about. And then the second thing that you're going to do is really, it's part of the commitment process, but you need to put together a team. Advocacy is not a solo sport. It just isn't. Because what I talked about before, not everybody's good at everything. Even if it's just one other person, get a team together to be able to kind of talk about, this is how I got a response. This is the response I got. What do you think this means, right? Because in our own heads, I don't know about you, but in my head, everybody's annoying. Believe me, every day somebody's annoying. And so I need to have somebody around me who says, I don't see that as annoying. I see that as just them doing their job and telling you this is how things go. And so I wanted to be able to have somebody to bounce off of pretty much every project I do. The other piece it's really good about being a project is about being part of a team is that, remember I told you how not everybody is good at everything? And also, if it's a big deal, then you need to have somebody out front who's making the noise. And sometimes it's nice to have somebody in the back going in through the back door going, I know she's really mad, isn't she? And listen, let me tell you, I think this is what is this might be what calms, and here's why she's so mad. And here's why she, so I've got somebody, I'm up front going, this is bullshit. And yep, I swear. And then in the background, I got somebody going, yeah, it really is, isn't it? But here's how we can work it out, So they might be too intimidated to come and talk to me, but they're not going to be intimidated. The person who can change it isn't going to be too intimidated. And so I'll give you an example of that, because I want to kind of use my real life examples as we go. I'm going to say 10 years ago, maybe less. Washington State went through a downsizing of their, it might have been around 2008. I don't know. And so they went through they went through a downsizing. They were laying people off, and through a series of rifts, which is, so first of all, you've got state employees, you've got unions, you've got all the different dynamics that go with that. And we had a state employee who was the Office of Consumer Affairs. And they brought the consumer voice into the state hierarchy, the state policy developers. They were at an executive level, and they were right under the director. And so that was really important. And one of the requirements for that particular position was that the person had to have lived experience with mental illness. So what happened was, through, how people can, if you get ripped, you can take the next job. I mean, there's a whole internal stuff. Well, what happened was, somebody without lived experience with mental illness got put into that job. And the job had sat open for a long time. So we were at a conference, and I say we, I mean my colleagues and I. There's a bunch of us that are very loud advocates in our state, very effective advocates in our state, and so we were at a conference, and it was a state mental health conference, and a state employee got up, and it was one of those, we want to hear what you think, we really care about you. We all raised our hand and said, when are you going to fill the Office of Consumer Partnerships? We want our voice on a policy making level. And the man stood up there and he said, we're working on it, and as soon as we can, we will. Now, what he knew and was lying to us about was the fact that it had been filled, and just hadn't been announced yet. And it was filled with a person who did not have lived experience. And he thought it was in his best interest to lie to us rather than just tell us the truth and take the hit right then and there. Well, anybody who knows me for half an hour or more knows that to me, if you lie to me like that, that's it. I mean, all bets are off. I am, Katie barred the door. Here she comes. As my friends would say, do they even know you? Like, no, clearly he did not. So when we found out that in fact he knew this at the time, and that in fact, and we talk, we're all friends, and so we're talking on the phone all the time, and it's just a huge gossip session. And it's like, did you know that he knew that when he made that announcement at the conference? So I did something that was founded in rage, but was also really choreographed. And I went on a mission, and about every day or every other day, I sent out an email to everyone and carbon copied everyone else, including national people. And I was like, Washington State doesn't understand recovery would be the headline. And then I would carbon copy people from SAMHSA and and send letters to the director of the behavioral health division, and I was like, every single email I sent out was loud and very respectful. And at the bottom was the definition of the Office of Consumer Partnerships and why, and also had the guiding principles of recovery. At that point, they were the components of recovery. Every single thing had those two in them. And it was just creating an outrage that they had actually put a person who did not have lived experience in an office that had was supposed to represent people with lived experience. So I wasn't having it. And I would send these emails out, and I learned tricks from a lot of different things. This was before I had a listserv. So clearly it was before I had a social media presence. And so it was, it was a while ago. And it looked bigger than it was because I pulled every trick in the book I had. And so I created quite a scene. I did this because I knew I was right. I absolutely knew I was right, 100% was right. And I was really angry that this person had sat there and lied to me in public, because I thought that was the ultimate disrespect for everybody in that room, that they would sit there and just lie to us about this. And so the first couple of emails I sent out did not result in immediate reversal of this decision. And I was pretty devastated. But my friend would say to me, he would say, Mary, it's not over. We're just getting started on this. And so I continued to announce the outrage, which now is what, right, 24-hour news channels do. That's, I check in, I go, what am I supposed to be outraged about today, right? And so I continued to create the outrage or express the outrage in very respectful, very loud ways. Like, I wasn't calling people names. I was just being like, man, Washington State really got it wrong. And then I would write this email to the director, like the governor was CCing the world about how this was so wrong. So what was happening, though, behind the scenes is my friend Brad was having conversations with all these state policymakers. And he was figuring it out and how all of this kind of stuff. And he was having these backdoor conversations. Yeah, she's pretty upset. No, I don't think you should call her. I think you should just talk to me and we'll just calm this and we'll figure this out. And so we all sorted it out, and we would get together and I would cry and carry on. And they would say, Mary, you're doing a great job. Keep going. And so I was basically channeling my PTSD. I was allowing my PTSD to drive it. I knew it. I knew it. And I was like, we're just going to let this go and I'll worry about getting well later, because this was so important to me. What happened was that person voluntarily left that position and went to a different position, and we had a huge state meeting. And part of the dynamics had to do with this person was a family member. She was a sibling of a person with the developmental disabilities. So the family people were saying, no, she has lived experience. And I was saying, no, she doesn't. No, she doesn't. And so there was this whole dynamics between the family advocates and the people with lived experience, personal experience advocates. Because I don't know if you know this, but there's a very different worldview between those two groups of people. So we had a meeting, and I didn't invite the families. I'm like, this isn't for you. This is for us. And so they were mad about that. And we met with state people, and we had a huge meeting, and we talked about a lot of stuff, and we got a lot of information, and we made a lot of headway, and we really resolved the issue in a way that took a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of drama. So when that position did get filled later with another person who was my friend, after she got the job, we became friends. And she told me later that her boss, when she was hired, said to her, she was the head of the division of behavioral health services, it's like, I don't ever want Mary Judd Wysiak mad at me. That's your job. That's part of your job, is to make sure Mary Judd Wysiak is never mad at us. So that's not the resolution. I didn't want her to just make me happy. But what that said was they didn't ever want a big giant mess like that again. So they were going to be a little bit more careful and ask a few more questions and make sure that they got things right, and that the arrogance had left the building. that made me happy. Is it perfect in Washington State? Absolutely not. And so, so that's just a story about an advocacy that came out of an incident, but it was built on relationships. It was built on many years of advocacy at the state. So we knew who the players were and they knew who we were, and we knew each other. It wasn't just one lone voice. And we really had a team that was like an ad hoc team that came together. It's like the all-stars, right? You come from all different teams. We came together, we accomplished what we wanted, and we left and we disbanded. And it worked really well. So that's an example of an advocacy effort. That's an example of a team that worked together, where everybody was doing different things. I was a good writer. Brad was a good politician. Somebody else was a good, just, spreading the words, sharing the emails. Wow. Having the conversations in the background and just really moving this whole thing forward. Okay. So that's just an example of a team. I would hope that you would be a little bit more intentional about who you have on your team in the beginning, but sometimes things just happen. And so there's that. The other piece is to really, you need to do your homework. This particular issue that I talked about was probably the biggest advocacy thing I've ever done, in that type of advocacy, where I just really made a lot of noise and really, it was very public and we fixed the problem immediately. But that was because I understood the system. I understood who the players were. I understood what the issue was, and I owned that issue. That was an issue that I was an expert in. So if I'm going to do, for instance, if I'm going to go into and do some advocacy around homelessness, I'm not an expert in that particular field. I have colleagues who are, and I will call on them. If I see something that is not right, I will call them and go, what's going on with this? And they'll give me all the backstory. So that's what I mean when I say do your homework. That's part of the understanding piece. But so when it comes to advocacy, do your homework. But for this particular slide, to get the best out of this series, I'm going to give you actual homework. So I want you to do your homework. And then the next month, we're going to spend some time and we're going to go over that homework because it's really important. And so this month's homework is an interesting little tidbit that I'm going to give you, but yeah, so there's that. So what I want to do now, before we go into the next part, which is just really kind of what is advocacy and really talk about advocacy, I would like to just kind of throw open the chat. We have some folks in the room, and I'm going to stop sharing, and I would just really like to hear from you. Hey, everybody. I would just really like to hear from you. What do you think about what we've talked about so far, and how, any comments or questions or examples or anything? If so, just open your microphone and talk. Beyond right
on. This is Sandy, and as I'm listening to this, I'm going, oh my God, yeah. Okay, so where do you want me to start? What project I'm thinking of?
No, I just want to hear your thoughts on what we've talked about so far.
I've been taking notes, and I mean, my project is something I've lived with my entire life. And I know the underside of the pain that comes from not pulling things together. And so, and I know the complexity of it, because what I've seen with things that the advocacy I've participated in, when you throw a broad net, you're going to get a lot of people involved in it, but it's hard when you don't know who is going to be in your net, because you're dealing with something that started on rare and not being understood. And so I mean, I like the idea of the lotus blossom, because my stuff is definitely down in the muck. But
right.
So
our roots come from the rotted muck.
Yeah. but I mean, you are speaking to probably this is the kind of thing that we all, the entire peer community needs to look at
Yeah.
because we are not a homogenic, all agree
Right.
group. So anyway, that's just my thoughts.
And my thoughts that came to me after what you're saying, Sandy, is when you throw a big wide net, a couple of things happen. You're going to get a big giant group of people that are really difficult to manage because everybody has their own agenda. The other piece is that when you throw a big wide message, really easy to ignore because it's too big, and you've got maybe 6 different agencies that address that. And so it's really easy for them to just go, oh yeah, you need to talk to so-and-so about that. And they just can deflect and deflect. So
and then they lose because within that big broad net are some very specific
right.
core things that need
so
to
this
be
is why
brought
when I
out.
say, to pick your project is maybe you want to just pick one of those little ribbons that you can pull that's going to make a difference.
Right.
Rather than trying to take on the whole thing.
Right.
Pick one little thing that you can pull because you'll find that can be very effective as well.
Exactly.
Thank you,
so
Sandy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi.
Hey, Candace.
Hey. So I really gravitated to what you said about allowing your PTSD to guide you.
Oh God,
at that point.
That was a drama. I mean, I really just had to unleash the PTSD and go, oh, this is, and I didn't know, and I'll tell you the truth, I didn't know if I was going to get it back, right? That was one of those risks that I took because, yeah, I'm like, I'm just going to be sick here for a minute and just let this happen. And then, I mean, within a respectful way. And then, but understanding that that there was going to be some healing that was going to have to happen afterwards.
Absolutely. I look at it as being authentic and vulnerable.
Yeah.
Which is something. So I try to engage people because we have a team. And so I try to engage someone that I have something in common with, whether it's chronic homelessness or chronic pain. And because that's that empathy piece that we need, that fire. And when I'm dealing with other people in an inpatient setting, say a discharge can be very complicated, hospital discharge and discharge planning. And I'm very meticulous about that because it just matters. That's what keeps people from being, high utilizers of the emergency room and stuff. And so
we're not saying frequent flyers.
Oh.
Trauma matters.
It matters. Trauma informed language matters. Okay, so yeah, but I gravitated to that because sometimes I think I can be a bit pushy, over the top, demanding.
Yes, it happens. Yeah. So that's and understanding, is this helpful in this particular instance? Is this helpful or not? And so and that's where somebody more soft might come behind you and go, I know she can be a little pushy, but can you see where she's coming from? And have that follow-up conversation, right? Part of your team. Nice. Thank you, Candace. So Rhonda, I have a big pile of papers here on my floor of things I need to type up to get to you. It's been creating some guilt in me. All those big papers from our workshop that we did together. So I'll get that to you by the end of next week.
I'm still hearing such positive things about that. And
oh, thank you.
When I saw that you had this going today, I actually moved a couple of appointments I had this afternoon around so I could do this.
Wonderful.
And I said to them, I need to move you to 3:30. Is that okay? Because I'm going to do a holding the hope. Oh, I'll share with you. And this is wonderful because I think my role may be a little bit different than some others with it being front office, but I have a project that I'm wanting to start anyway. And I think this will help me. I have
Great.
someone in mind to help me with it. We've already visited about a little bit. And so I'm kind of excited to see what happens with it.
Great. I'm hoping, yeah. So this is the thing about these things I'm going to talk about. You can use them for so many parts of your life, right? It's just these are just things I've learned, and I thought to myself, one day I was kind of feeling sorry for myself. I was like, I'm getting old. I'm getting old. How much longer am I going to do this? I don't know. So then I thought, well, you got a lot to share. Why don't you just share it?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing. And so it's like, what the hey, let's
Awesome.
put it all out there. Here's what I know.
Well,
All
I'm glad
right.
you did.
Oh, thanks. Thank you so much. All right. So Elizabeth, you got your camera off, and that's fine. You can leave it off. If you have something you want to say, that's great. If not, we'll move on. Oh, hey, there she is. You're good. Okay, good. Then we'll just keep talking. All right. So what I want to do now is I'm going to check the chat and see. Oh, right on. That's so awesome. Thank you, everybody. All right. So, all right. So let's go back to me sharing my screen and showing you what we got going on here. So these are some things to get the best out of this series. Obviously, you can see if you're in the VIP room, I'm going to have a conversation with you, and we're going to talk about your projects. If you have a specific project, you can take what I'm saying out of theory and into practice, and that always makes the learning different. It's an experiential learning versus a theoretical learning. Get a team together and then do your homework. All right. So let's just kind of talk about advocacy. What is it? And I love to start with definitions. It's the act or process of supporting a cause or a proposal. And then any action that speaks in favor of, recommends, argues for a cause, supports or defends or pleads on behalf of others. Now, the piece on this that I really kind of want to focus on is on behalf of others, because sometimes, and I've seen this and I've done it myself, there's something that I need that I'm not getting. A specific medicine, let's say. I want that medicine, I can't get it. So I start calling everybody and I start advocating for myself. And that is a type of advocacy. And I'm not going to say it isn't. What I'm going to say is that it's not what we're going to focus on a lot during this series. We're really going to talk about how are we going to take a project that's going to impact a system or that's going to impact others, right? And not just me. So I'm not getting the medicine I need. I can call a bunch of people. I can go to a bunch of meetings and I can talk about the fact that I'm not getting the medicine that I want, the medicine that I need. I can't get it. Nobody will listen to me. And I can make all kinds of noise about that. It's a legitimate issue. What's going to really get me what I need, it's not going to be as quick, but what I can do is I can say, what's going on with this medication formulary that I'm not able to get what I need? Because chances are, if I'm not going to get what I need, somebody else isn't going to get what they need either. So rather than saying, this is what I want, you can say, why am I not getting what I need? And how many other people are not getting what they need? And what's broken in our system that maybe we could all work together to fix, right? So if you look at that from that perspective, you could call, you could talk to your counselor and say, I know you can't give me specifics, but would I be correct in saying that I'm not the only one that's not getting what they need? And they might say, yes, you are correct in that. And does it upset you that your clients aren't getting the one thing that you know is going to help them? It does upset me. There's nothing I can do about it without losing my job. Didn't we learn a whole bunch more right there that we wouldn't have learned if we were still demanding that we got what we wanted, right? Because we might make enough noise that somebody might say, listen, here's the dang pills, we'll give you an exception, there you go. Or, and that's fine, right? That works. But what if we actually were able to say, who sets this medication formulary? Who decided that this particular pill wasn't on it? Why? When's the next meeting? Is it open to the public? Can I go to that meeting? What do I know about all the other pills? What's the underlying values that this particular committee holds? Is it that they have to figure out what's best practice or what's best value? What's driving that? What's really driving this particular committee? And talk to a lot of different people. People that you agree with, people that don't agree with you. Why is this committee good? And what do they do well? And what are their limitations? This can go as big as you want, right? So when we take what we want, me, and we turn it into others, we then we have a cause, right? Then we have something we can support, or something we can defend, or something that we can plead on behalf of others. Then we have credibility. Because quite frankly, if you show up at a public meeting and you're complaining that you can't get what you need, people are annoyed with you because they're going to say to you, we can't talk about individual cases here in this public meeting. You need to take that back to your therapist. Well, I did talk to my therapist and she can't help me either. And then there's nothing they can do except tell you that your time is up. And then it's just really awkward for everyone. And it's not helpful. So this is why I really like this second definition. It's an action that speaks in favor of, recommends, argues, supports, defends on behalf of others. It's a subtle distinction, but I think it's big. Okay, so what are the types of advocacy? And again, there's case advocacy and self-advocacy, which is really about where I've got this person that works with me and I want to advocate on their behalf. I want to advocate on my own behalf. There's my peers. I'm going to advocate with my peers. And what we know about peer support is that it's really altruistic, and we don't ever do anything for somebody or on behalf of somebody. We do stuff with people. We teach them how to advocate with us. There's the paid independent advocates. Lobbyists would be an example of that. People who are paid. When my son was coming up and he had an IEP, I was a woman that I paid to come and help me sort out because I was just way too anxious to be able to identify any of it. And so she helped me sort it out. She helped me come up with some reasonable accommodations, and she was paid and she was independent. And she went to the IEP meetings with me, and there was that. It was great. There's citizen advocacy where you can and you can go and you can, we've all been a part of the citizen advocacy where you're marching in the streets, right? Or you're testifying for a statute, or you're doing something as a citizen. And again, you're going to be improving you're advocating for something that you feel strong about from a community level. And then statutory advocacy, which is also, I think you could call it legislative advocacy, where you would go to a Senate hearing, say, and you would advocate, why you wanted something to pass, or what would be the impact of that if it did pass, negative or positive, from your perspective, as a person with lived experience, your perspective as a police officer, your perspective as a whatever it is your perspective is, what's the impact that's going to have. So this is just a list of types of advocacy that I pulled up off the internet, just because it was quick and it was obvious. But I really, I think that there's also types of ways to advocate, as I've said when I talked about my example earlier. There was me out front typing the emails, pointing out the obvious injustice, identifying who are the allies, and incorporating different allies every month, and just really, or every time I did something, it was with a new set of allies, so I was having an impact on a different place, and calls to action, and just really making it big and loud and splashy, right? So that was my advocacy. That was the little B there with the microphone. I was making sure that this issue was front and center on everybody's conversation over coffee, like, holy cow, do you see what Mary's up to today? And then, there's that, what I would call more of an organizational advocacy, where we've got the pink ribbons. This is more about for a cause, where there's a whole machine behind this. You see those pink ribbons, you know exactly what that's about, right? You know that's something that, and you know what they do, and you know what they want. They want you to help. They want you to give them money to help them cure breast cancer, right? That's what that is. Awareness, cures. That's what that is. So there's different types of advocacy. And then there's, we're just going to march in the street because we're mad as hell and we're not going to take it anymore. Right. So we're marching in the streets. But even then, but this is an example of what we were talking about, Sandy, when you throw that wide net, right? So if you remember correctly, the Occupy people came out, right? And they had this huge, wide net of all these people under it. And there was so much chaos as a result, because their message was not clear, right? They were mad as hell and they weren't going to take it anymore, and they took to the streets, but everybody was mad about something different. And they might have had some cross-pollination on what they were mad about. They might have had but they really didn't have a clear message about what they wanted to fix it. So when you're thinking about that, really, they might have had a clear message, but it didn't get communicated to me. I don't know what it was that they wanted, other than it changed a lot. And I agreed with most of what they were asking for, but I just was never clear on what that was. So different types of advocacy. Think about, what kind of an advocate are we going to do? Are we going to kind of just go case by case? Are we going to look at a system advocacy? Are we going to look at legislative advocacy? There are some organizations here in Washington State. I'm going to use the suicide prevention community as another example. Excuse me. There was a youth suicide prevention program. And what we did was we did education and training for all, and I was contracted to work in Southwest Washington down here, these counties down here. And it was out of Seattle. And so it was really a training organization. And what we did was we advocated for young people to empower them to understand what to do, show you care, ask a question, get help. It was a clear message. It was on all the paperwork. It was free. It was funded. We went into schools, and it was an advocacy effort in that regard, as we were teaching people what to do and how to help their friends, how to save their lives. The advocacy piece came from the clear messaging, really understanding what the whole subject was about, and understanding the truth versus fear and myth. So you could go into a school and say to a principal, no, talking about this isn't going to cause it. Your kids are already thinking about it. Let's give them a place to go to talk about it. Let's empower their friends. Here's what we know. Kids talk to kids rather than adults. Let's give the kids power, right? So there was some advocacy involved in that. So that was awesome. And then there is another organization here in Washington State, and it's called Forefront. It's out of the University of Washington, run by a woman named Jen Stuber. Jen's husband died by suicide years ago. And what she realized was that many of the medical professionals that were treating him and mental health professionals that were treating him knew of his suicide thinking, but weren't able to help him. And so she didn't recognize what she was seeing. And so she took her personal experience, which is often where advocates come from, that drive, that purpose. Why are we here? Because she wants to save lives. and she began to create legislation. She created a company called Forefront, and they have so successfully passed legislation requiring continuing education for professionals in the area of suicide and suicide prevention. So dentists, acupuncturists, chiropractors, school psychiatrists, school nurses, school psychologists. And then it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Washington State, if you want to get your license renewed, you have to take a certain number of hours of continuing education around suicide prevention. She took her personal stuff and and she made it different. She changed the environment. So that would be another form of legislative advocacy. Another form of advocacy, she could, and I don't know anything about this, but a person in her situation could have also filed legal action against all those professionals that knew or should have known and didn't act enough, right? So that's also a form of advocacy. And that is also going to change the system. The insurance companies are going to go, oh, whoa, we don't want to pay those kind of settlements anymore. Let's put some requirements in place around that. Lots of different ways you can be an advocate. Just be really clear what it is you're doing and what it is you want. One of the things that I used to do, because I was an advocate for many years I was the mental health advocate. I was the mental health ombudsman here in Clark County. I was the first one. So I created the organization and kind of set the standards and introduced the whole concept to the community. What I quickly learned, and basically if a person who was receiving Medicaid mental health services had a complaint with their Medicaid mental health service provider, I would help resolve it at the lowest level possible. So what that meant was I would negotiate conversations between a counselor or a therapist or somebody and the person who was receiving services. We would have a conversation, we would resolve it, we'd be done. What I quickly realized was I needed to ask the person in their intake, how are you going to know you're finished? What exactly is it you want? And if they would say to me, I want money, I would say, then you need to hire a lawyer. I can't help you get money. If they would say to me, I just want to be heard, then I'm like, perfect, great. So what makes you know you've been heard? So that when they were finished, they knew they were finished. Because sometimes people would go, they would get what they wanted initially, and then they'd come back the next day and go, yeah, but, and off we go again. So this way, everybody knew what they wanted before we even stepped foot into it. The person knew what was expected of them. The person knew what they were expecting to get. So these two people could have a conversation about this, and it made a huge difference in that relationship, that therapeutic relationship, the empowerment that went on, the learning that happened. It was great. So that's a type of advocacy. And as the person who wants to get something, be really clear. What is it that you want? How are you going to know when you've got it? Let's talk about principles of advocacy. This is the clarity of purpose that I just talked about. What is it that you want? How is it that you know you're going to get it? And then if we talk about the safeguard, you're not going to, you don't be mean, right? Really is what I think about that one. When it comes to safeguard, what are we safeguarding? We're principles of advocacy. We're really safeguarding our ability to continue to do this. And you just really want to safeguard the respect and dignity of everybody involved. Really, there's just, if you're screaming and hollering and yelling, you're not advocating, you're abusing. So you really need to be very clear about what you want and what is it that you want to safeguard. Dignity, respect, those things are just absolute stalwarts when it comes to this particular type of work. And then confidentiality. You're going to hear some stuff from people that you don't need to share. It's not, you just don't need to. Some people in a way to resolve something, you might hear some backstories that might lead to why something happened the way it did. This doesn't need to be known. Let's just talk about the resolution. Equality and diversity. It's really kind of important for you to understand that every person, like let's go back to that example of you didn't get your medicine. And so you're going to try to look at that from a systemic level. You also want to look at that, all the different people that are involved in that, they all have a different perspective. So even if it's other people who want medicine, look at that from a diverse perspective. Because if you're just like this little white person marching forward, making that, it might not land the same for the people who are of different backgrounds and different cultures and different, they advocate different. They're going to talk about things different. They're going to, they're so really understand the diversity, listen for it, look for it, include it in what you're doing, in what you're working for. And then always put people first. It's about empowerment. This isn't about breaking somebody's spirit or getting somebody fired. That's not helpful. Now, on rare occasions, somebody might have to go. It happens, right? It happens, but that's not the goal. We want to put people first. People that are in the same situation of us, or people who are coming behind us, or people who have gone before us. We just want to put people first, and that includes the people that we're advocating against, the people that we're going to be asking for something from. We want to put them first, and we really want to think about what do they need, and how can we help them get what they need to support our wants. So it's a lot. These are the principles of advocacy. So here's what I want to do is, we got a few minutes left. It's 1:09, and I want to open this up at the end. But I want to give you, here's your homework. Okay. We're gonna send these slides out to you so that you have them, but I want you to really understand your homework. And it's a lot. It doesn't look like much, but it's a lot. So what I want you to do is, the first thing I want you to do is to identify your top 5 values. Why? Because you need to know who you are and what you value in the big picture of life, so that those values come with you into everything you do. Okay. So I have done this work, so I'm not going to tell you to do anything I haven't done. All right. So here are my top 5 values. Dignity. Okay. If you are on my email list, you got this as part of my hello, welcome. You got this list. I sent you an email that said, these are my top 5 values. Dignity. I recognize the inherent dignity of each person and each situation. Kindness and respect are the hallmarks of this value. Recognition. I have knowledge and skills that people need. I'm going to recognize my own value. The only way that my work can be recognized as valuable is to display it in full view without hesitation. Because I tend to kind of hide. I used to be really shy. I'm not kidding. And then responsibility. I take responsibility for my personal growth and my professional excellence. Right? And then integrity. I do the right thing at the right time for the right reason. And then self-determination. I am the navigator of my journey. I seek guidance from advisors, but the final decisions are mine. Those are my top values. And it took me a minute. I mean, I didn't just put this together overnight. That's why you have a month to do this. But I want you to really identify your top values. So you're like, well, how do I do that? Google it. It says right here, there are so many worksheets and so many ways that you can do that. I guess you could pay for it if you wanted to, but there's so much stuff online. Just like, how do I identify my values? You'll see so much stuff that'll come up. There's worksheets, there's lists, there's YouTube videos, there's all kinds of stuff to help you. And just come up with 5. You have a deadline till December 3rd to do this. So, because if you're in the Zoom room, I'm going to ask you what yours are. And then I want you to identify your superpower. This took me some time, because remember I told you I was shy. I also was like, I don't have anything, right? I do have a superpower. I have a superpower, and my superpower is I provide encouragement and hope through connection. Right? That's my superpower, is that I connect with people and I give them hope and encouragement. And I hope people connect with each other. That's what I do. It's what I've always done. It's just who I am. I can't help it. I've always been that way. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. That's not my superpower. That's my purpose in life. That's your homework, is to figure out your purpose in life. That's kind of big, but here, my superpower is connection. I can't stop talking to people. I connect with people I don't know. I connect with people who don't want to know me. I can't help it. My superpower is connection. This next one I really love. It is an exercise that I learned from a person that I was working with, and this is just one of those things, and I don't know if I have this exactly right, but I have this here, and here's mine, right? I am in 3 different descriptions of you, 3 different adjectives that describe you: joyful, kind, inspirational. And then woman, man, person, however you identify yourself, whatever your pronouns are, right? I am a joyful, kind, inspirational woman. And I am gratefully determined to empower myself and others now. Not next year, not yesterday, but right now. Right? Snap your fingers. It really closes that in. It's important. So this is your homework for next month, is that you really have to know yourself. Why? Because if you don't know what your values are and you get into it with somebody, you might go down a road that you don't want to go. You might violate some of your values unknowingly by getting snippy with yelling, losing your temper, gossiping, doing all those things that is not who you are, right? So joyful, kind, inspirational people don't gossip. It took me a while to figure that one out. But you just have to know yourself, so that when you come into this conversation, this difficult conversation that you're going to have with people, you really need to understand who you are and what drives you in this work, right? Understand your superpower. Mine is connection. I love it. I can't help it. It's just who I am. It's what I do. And then I have this statement that helps me when I'm lost and I don't know who I am or what I am or what's going to happen next. I can still know that I'm joyful. I can still be kind and inspirational regardless of what else is going on. And I can do it now, right? So this is your homework. And then let's see what's next. So this is again, if you want to visit these websites, this is the Peer Support Training Center for lots and lots of on-demand trainings, a CARES toolkit, 12 modules, lots of extra resources, recovery alignment, 12-week learning collaborative for people who really want to get and keep the employees that they need for their agency. That's what these are. And this is today's homework. I'll put it up here again. Know yourself. So do your homework. And I'm going to stop sharing and just kind of put this out there and see what do you think? Any comments as we close out? Any comments? We've got 15 minutes if anybody wants to talk about anything.
You've utterly hit the nail on the head. I mean, you've gone through so many expanses and hit those nails on heads that were underneath all this, because
this is just the fun, and this is just the orientation.
And the thing is,
goodbye, Elizabeth.
I have lived with where I feel like, no, I can't say I've recovered and I'm covered, and where you just the complex PTSD, the stuff you're just becoming aware, just finding a sense of hope, and life has been so dark, okay, because you're finally looking at things that dissociation hid. And what I sense, and I'm like almost in tears, is that this is, for me, right, just this is such a big way out. Instead of looking at the the injustices that I've experienced and being stuck there, I can see a broader. So I'm
Awesome.
totally in, and I'm hoping to get more people the next time.
Great. Awesome. All right. Anybody else have any comments? All right. So do your homework, and hopefully the other thing I will tell you is, kind of pick a project between now and then. Oh, good. I'm glad you've enjoyed it, Rhonda. And we will, so pick a project. So you have something in your mind again, so we can take it from the theory to the real. And we'll come back. I'll see you next week. Or next month, I'll be in Ohio with my buddy Joe, right before my dad's 97th birthday. So I'm always in an altered state when I'm in Ohio, but it'll be fun. We'll have a good time. And happy Thanksgiving, and have a fantastic month. I'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.